It doesn't matter who you are and how well you are mentally, it's gonna have a huge impact on your mental health. So I'm Larissa. I'm 26 years old and I'm a general labourer in construction. I feel like it's going in the right direction, but it's not there yet. There's still quite a lot of like the old school, older guys that were brought up with, men are not to talk about feelings and emotions and things like that and just toughen up and move on with it sort of thing. So I feel like even though there is a lot of push for bettering mental health and providing things like EAPs and just support, a lot of people don't want to accept it. But with like the long hours and the hard work, it doesn't matter who you are and how well you are mentally, it's gonna have a huge impact on your mental health. And you see a lot of the older guys that have been doing it their whole lives are usually very quick to anger and very irritable. And a lot of people chalk it down to like, oh, that's just him. And it's like, looking at it and being in it, you're like, well, I'm sure they'd be a much happier, nicer person if they, weren't working 60 plus hours a week for the last 40 years. Like they just constantly work, that's all they know. And it's, of course, you're going to be easily frustrated and have a sort of short fuse and things like that. It's quite rough. I'm someone who values their time a lot more than money. So I'm not someone who tends to do overtime if I don't need to and things like that. But when you work in a place that, you have to be there 10, 12 hours a day, I find that I get, just very short and irritable and things like that. And my brain starts looking at everything in like a negative light. So I'll take things people say a little bit more harshly than I usually would. And I actually had a stress-induced seizure last year because, I was doing long hours every day. And then there was one day where it was a Friday, had plans at 5 o'clock when I was like, yep, that'll be when I'm finishing, plans straight from work to go do something. But it ended up going to 5 o'clock and then 6 o'clock and then it's 7 o'clock when I'm leaving. And there was no communication about it going that long. It was just sort of, I had to stay until everyone left sort of thing. And it was very like, oh, they should almost be done. They should almost be done. And then 2 hours later, it's finishing up and, my plans are ruined. And it just makes you feel like you're not human almost, because it's like, oh, they just sort of control what I do and where I go and things like that. So it just feels like your freedom's gone and you're just kind of trapped and a bit of a prisoner to work. A little bit. I basically, because I couldn't change really anything at work, I just had to change my outside work life, ask for a bit more help and understanding from my support system and things like that. And then also just making sure I do take time to just be quiet and relax, making sure I don't fill up the rest of my free time with things that are go and stressing me more. So it's basically just finding time to relax and wind down. I think the overtime culture, where I'm at currently, I only need to be there for the 8 hours, 5 days a week. There's obviously like more hours I can do and they are open longer. But I don't tend to take the overtime because, like I said, I value my time more than my money. But just about every single person in the industry is like, oh, but you're missing out on overtime and you should just come in because they have to pay you anyway. And it's like, well, yeah, that's good and great. Like, I don't want to. And then they expect you to as well. So it's just the thing of people just assume you sort of have to work the 60 hours a week. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, you're contracted to 40 hours a week. So if you don't want to do more, then like don't. And if it's like taking a toll on your mental health, then, take that time and use it to wind down a little bit more and just get your mind more settled and clear. My dad works in the industry and I'm like actually on the same site, and yeah, he's sort of the same. Like if he's not at work, he sort of gets bored. He doesn't know what to do with himself, and then that in itself tends to sort of take a bit of toll on your mental health, because I know if I just sit at home and do nothing for a few days, I start feeling not great and sort of I need to go out and do things. And for men that have been working 40 years and have no free time, once they get all that free time, they just don't know what to do with it, and then they're old and tired and can't go out and do all the fun stuff that they missed out on when they were younger. It's definitely very, very different experience being a woman than what I assume it would be as a man. And a lot of the men also don't realize as well, because they're not the ones being impacted by the things that are not great in the industry, like our amenities. You know, a lot of the time we don't have our own toilets, or we don't get the sanitary bins, or, you know, we get lewd comments thrown at us all the time, and it's also just being the only female in an environment full of men, especially big dirty men. It's like you feel very out of place and almost like an animal in a zoo. Like as soon as you walk into a room, it's like everyone looks at you and then they keep looking at you, because they're sort of like, oh my gosh, a woman's here, like what's that? Like what are they doing here? And it's good. It's not so bad when you've got other women on site, but I've definitely had some sites where I'm the only woman out of like 150 people, you know? And if you don't have your own toilets, then it's like you literally have no area or space to go that's like men free. Yeah, and so it's just very isolating, I suppose. And then there's, you know, being underestimated. Like every site I go to, the first thing they do is hand me like a broom and tell me to go like clean stuff. It usually takes not having another person to do the job to go, oh, okay, can you like get this done? And then you smash it out and they go, oh, maybe you can do some things. Here, let me get you to do some other things. And you're like, cool, so you've had me on a brush for a month because you assumed I couldn't do anything without even like trying to see. And I've also found women work harder. I think because we have something to prove. Because yeah, every guy I've worked one-on-one with, I remember it was a lot of like, hey, come on, like let's get things moving, let's go. Whereas with every other woman I've worked with, it's just we're both into it, getting it done, and then we've smashed it out and we're on to the next thing. So yeah, it just feels very one-sided of I have to work really hard just to be seen. Very hard, very isolating, very...
Do you think it's really slowly changing, or is it?
I think it is, especially with more and more union sites coming up. I've found on union sites they're very, like, nothing is tolerated. So yeah, if you're treated poorly, then it's like dealt with. Whereas on another site, you get treated poorly and you try and bring it up, they'll just get rid of you and be like, all right, you're too much hassle to deal with. We'll just find someone who's not gonna kick up a stink when we talk to you like shit.